The rain was falling hard. Every drop bounced off the stones and wet pavement of the narrow alley in Lagos. The air was thick with cold, and the street smelled of wet dust mixed with a faint scent of garbage. The alley was dark and slippery, a place where few people dared to walk at night. But Chukwuemeka did not mind the weather or the danger. He stood still with his back pressed against the cold, moist wall. His eyes were sharp, moving carefully between the shadows. In one hand, he held a small phone. In the other, a cold metal gun. The gun was heavy and real, a weight he had grown used to carrying. It made him feel both strong and tired. One shot, one job, no mistakes, he told himself quietly. It was a rule he never broke. His phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the silence of the night. He looked at the small screen. A message was waiting for him. Target: Honorable Emeka Abasi. Sunday, 8 p.m. Location: Victoria Island. Chukwuemeka took a deep breath in, feeling the cold rain on his skin, and then let it out slowly. Tonight, everything would change. He moved his hand slightly, checking the gun once again. The metal hammer clicked as it cocked, making a sharp sound he could barely hear over the rain. And then, in an instant, the phone screen went black. Victoria Island was a beautiful place at night. The streets were clean, and the lamps glowed softly like stars on earth. Big mansions shone with golden light, music, and laughter. Chukwuemeka crouched behind a bush near one of the richest houses. His heart beat fast, but his face never showed fear. He wore a new shirt and jeans, clothes that helped him blend in. Inside the bright mansion, Honorable Emeka Abasi stood surrounded by guests. He was a well-known man, respected by many and considered honest by the public. He was wearing a dark suit, his round stomach poking through slightly. Chukwuemeka whispered bitterly to himself, "This man loves to talk about serving the people, but it is all lies. His belly says the truth, he takes the money for himself." He looked carefully at Emeka's confident face, filled with laughter and smiles. One clean shot, that will end the lies tonight. Inside the mansion, the party was alive with music, conversations, and clinking glasses. People were dressed in their best clothes, moving elegantly across the polished floors. Chukwuemeka was dressed as a waiter, carrying a tray full of drinks. He moved slowly and carefully so nobody would notice him. His eyes never left Emeka, standing proudly near the fireplace. Suddenly, his hand shook, and a glass slipped from the tray. The drink spilled onto the floor near Emeka's feet. Gasps filled the room. People turned their heads quickly. Emeka looked toward the spill and then met Chukwuemeka's eyes. In that split second of confusion, Chukwuemeka slipped a small, folded note into Emeka's hand. It was a bold move. The note said, "Your time is up." Emeka's face stayed calm. There was no fear. Instead, his eyes showed something else: understanding. Later, outside in the garden, where the moonlight touched the flowers and the cool breeze brushed the trees, Chukwuemeka moved swiftly. His heart thudded in his chest as he raised his gun. It was time to finish the job. Suddenly, a shadow appeared before him. Emeka stepped out silently, standing straight and strong. "So, you came for blood," Emeka said softly. Chukwuemeka did not lower the gun but stood his ground. "I was paid to do this," he said coldly. "Step aside." Emeka's voice stayed gentle but firm. "Who paid you, my son?" Chukwuemeka's hand tightened on the cold metal. For a moment, he almost spoke the name, but stopped himself. "They don't understand how you feel," Emeka continued kindly. But I do. Tell me, why are you killing? Chukwuemeka's voice dropped to a whisper. I have no choice. I need the money. Emeka took a slow step closer. There is always a choice, he said softly. And there is hope. Hope beyond pain, beyond poverty. For the first time that night, a seed of confusion grew in Chukwuemeka's eyes. Could there really be hope for him? The small office was quiet except for the soft ticking of an old clock on the wall. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the wooden desk. Emeka sat across from Chukwuemeka, his eyes calm, patient, and full of understanding. When I was young, Emeka began slowly, I was angry too. I wanted to fight the world because the world had hurt me. But anger only made my wounds deeper. Chukwuemeka looked down, his fingers tapping nervously on his knees. You don't know what it's like, he muttered. The hunger, the pain, the feeling that no one cares. Emeka leaned forward slightly. I do know. That is why I found something stronger than anger, something that can heal. Peace. Chukwuemeka scoffed. That sounds like a lie. No, Emeka smiled warmly. Peace does not mean weakness. It means you stop fighting yourself. You stop being your own enemy. Then you find strength you never knew you had. Chukwuemeka shook his head slowly but didn't speak. Emeka reached into his bag and pulled out a small, worn Bible. This book helped me. It helped me find hope when I thought all was lost. You are not just a man lost in darkness. You are an elect of God. Your spirit is crying out. Chukwuemeka's voice cracked as he replied, I am a hard man. Every time I pulled that trigger, I thought I was strong. Maybe I was just foolish. There's a beast inside me I cannot control. Emeka's eyes softened. Beasts can be tamed if you feed them with love and hope instead of hate. The streets of Lagos were alive with 1,000 colors and sounds. Market sellers shouted the goods, children darted between legs, and the smell of fried plantains and spices filled the heavy air. Chukwuemeka walked slowly, his mind a storm. Memories flooded back, the empty stomachs of his childhood, the day the police took his parents away, the harsh words from those who looked at him as less than a man. A young boy called out to him from a street corner. Mister, want some yam balls? Chukwuemeka smiled faintly, a flicker of warmth passing through his heart. He remembered Emeka's words, there's hope beyond pain. He stopped outside a small church. People were singing softly inside. The sound was strange but inviting. For the first time, a part of him wanted to step inside. That night, alone in his dimly lit room, Chukwuemeka sat on the edge of his bed. The gun felt cold and heavy in his right hand. In his left hand was the Bible, a small gift from Emeka. He opened the book slowly, his eyes adjusting to the small print. His fingers traced the worn pages until he stopped at a verse, John 3:16. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son. The words were like a warm light in the darkness of his soul. He felt a strange peace begin to seep into his heart, pushing out the cold dread and fear. For a long time, he just sat there, reading and rereading the words until his eyes grew heavy. The next morning, the sun rose over Lagos, casting golden light on the busy streets. Chukwuemeka's heart felt strangely lighter as he walked toward the church. His footsteps echoed softly across the worn pavement. When he entered, the scent of incense and fresh flowers welcomed him. Soft hymns floated through the air. People smiled warmly at him, strangers who felt like friends. Emeka stood at the door, his face radiant with kindness. "You're not alone anymore," Emeka said gently, stepping forward to embrace Chukwuemeka like a long-lost brother. Tears welled up in Chukwuemeka's eyes. "I've done many terrible things," he admitted, voice trembling. "At first, my conscience hurt me so much. My boss told me guilt was cowardice." Emeka nodded knowingly. "That pain you feel, that stirring in your heart, is the Holy Spirit. Don't ignore it. It will lead you away from darkness before other spirits take hold." For the first time, Chukwuemeka felt something new, hope. 6 months passed. Chukwuemeka's old life seemed like a distant shadow. At the airport, his heart pounded not with fear but with excitement. He clutched a new passport. Emeka smiled, handing him a plane ticket. "Your future is waiting for you. Go and live it well." Chukwuemeka ran a hand over his clean clothes and looked at the ticket in disbelief. "All this feels like a dream," he whispered. Emeka's eyes sparkled with faith. When the Lord turned the captivity of Zion, they were like those who dreamed. Chukwuemeka nodded, a smile breaking through. "Thank you," he said, his voice full of fresh hope. In a faraway city, dressed in clean clothes and carrying his Bible close, Chukwuemeka walked with a new purpose. The streets looked different, friendly and full of promise. He paused and looked up at the wide blue sky. "I was a killer sent to end a life," he thought quietly. "But someone saved mine. Now, I live for something greater." A peaceful calm rested in his heart. He smiled softly and whispered to himself, "There is a time for everything." And with that, he stepped forward into a new life.